The Pascal Janssen era begins with a point at Miami. Next up at LAFC and the official departure of Santi Rodriguez. That and a whole bunch more. It's NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, everybody. We are live. Roberto Abramowitz over there in Manhattan. I'm on the other side of the river in Jersey. And Roberto, his half of his head has not been chopped off. He actually just needs to tilt his camera down so that we can actually see his whole face.
Oh, okay, I'll definitely do that. 1 second.
Well,
I will definitely do that.
Okay.
There you go.
That's much.
It's like
better.
getting it's like have my head, the least important part of my head shaved off. No big deal.
Yeah. Well, when you lose all your hair, you can just go down to like that point, and then nobody will know. That's what you do. It's like wearing those hats or whatever, or the do-rag or whatever.
Whatever it is, it's going to be, and I'll just deal with it.
Right.
We all get old, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
so
it is what it is.
I'm fine.
I was just with someone today, and they're about 10 years my junior, and they were talking about how, I just aches and pains as you get older, and I'm like, well, yeah, this is one of the things that does happen. No matter how fit or what great shape you're in, things just start to hurt a little bit more. You become a little more fragile, and just we don't want to become more fragile emotionally. Even during this turbulent nation that we live in. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. And that we may start a podcast on that someday. Who knows? But anyway, this is the New York City FC podcast and others. We're going to talk a lot about MLS, the other teams that played on opening day weekend, some of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And but first, Roberto, I thought we'd start with this because about 90 minutes before kickoff at the Inter Miami game, and we were given a heads up on this. The official announcement came from the club that Santi Rodriguez had been transferred to Botafogo, and it's for the press release said for the second highest transfer figure in club history. Tati Castellanos has a slight edge. Either way, both ended up being very good business, but certainly the departure of Santi is difficult from an on-field sporting side, considering how vital he was. 12 goals, 10 assists a season ago. So are you going to make up for all of that? How exactly is that all going to work out? Is someone going to come in to help? Is somebody like a 17-year-old, does he exist that could help? There's a lot of questions to be answered about the number 10. We know Maxi Morales will be the guy there, but he can't play every minute of the season.
That's for sure, especially at 37 years old.
Yeah.
So that becomes very difficult, right? But look, the transfer window is open till April. New York City is notorious, famous, whichever adjective you want to use, for bringing people in a little bit late. And for what we understand, the fact that they were able to make this transaction, frees up resources to be able to bring people in. But it didn't seem, based on what we could learn, Glenn, was that a number 10 was a main priority. It looked like, that number 6 seemed to be something that the team might be exploring a little bit harder. Well,
we do have a new number 10. It's Maxi Morales. he got the 10.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah. Well, how about this Botafogo, the exports and some of the players that have gone through their team? Now, Thiago Almada was signed, but now he's been loaned to Lyon in France. but Gregory is there. We remember him from Inter Miami. Jefferson Savarino, who was a good forward here in MLS. They've gone to Botafogo, and permanent transfers to Brazil, in addition to Santi, Facundo Torres, Mikhail, he came from Houston Dynamo. He went to Palmeiras, as did Torres. Christian Oliveira, who we will discuss a little bit because he's no longer with LAFC, so it doesn't have to be dealt with. He's at Gremio. Yeah. And don't forget, let's not leave out Nico Acevedo, who ended up going to Bahia and signing a permanent deal there. So that's I just think it's an interesting destination at this point that things have changed there. And well, why don't we get to before because I know Shane's helping us cue some things up here. I'm gonna fast forward because I want your opinion on this. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. So Christian Oliveira. So we talk about him. So he was at LAFC last year. That's the next opponent. No longer around. He had like 9 or 10 goals in his 40 games for the club, but he was an effective attacking player. A pretty big loss. He admitted that his national team coach, Marcelo Bielsa, and we are going to get to the Inter Miami game and the LAFC game as we progress here, but he admitted that Bielsa told him to leave. Here's the quote. Bielsa told me to leave because MLS is a league that makes players lazy. I feel that way too. This is Oliveira still speaking. Oliveira. I feel that way too. In the United States, we lost 3 games in a row and the players didn't care. That's when I realized that this league isn't good for me. I'm assuming they're looking directly at promotion relegation with those comments, don't you think?
Yeah, that sort of pressure, right, that some people feel is, very, very important. I don't agree with that. I've made that very clear in my comments on social media, and maybe we've talked about it here as well. I don't agree with that. I mean, if you're not personally motivated to do your best, that's a you problem. It's not a league problem. We see players kill themselves in this league and give everything. And so, those are the type of players that you want. If Marcelo Bielsa feels that, I don't think that he's seen the league enough to be able to make that comment. I mean, when you look at the coach of the U.S.
I'll give you one.
National
I'll
team.
give you one. I'll give you an example while you're trying to remember that name. So I just watched a few episodes of the this MLS documentary series on Apple TV, which I can't. It's called Onside, I think. And the most recent one I watched and then had to hop on here was Atlanta United, and how on the last day, decision day, they needed a couple of other things to happen. So the idea here is that, every game they're playing down the stretch of the season's like, the MLS Cup final, because they are trying desperately just to get into the playoffs. So in some ways that mimics the pro rel thing, but ultimately not to the extent that pro rel does, and the amount of dollars that are involved if you go down. And Brazil has 4 teams that go down in their Serie A. 4 teams that go down, 4 teams that come up, and so a 4th team is going to go down too. So there's something to be said for that. But there are still pressures associated with getting into the playoffs, for instance.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so. If people make the argument that MLS can never become a top league unless it has promotion or relegation, and all the other sports in the United States spits in the face of that. Okay, we have the best baseball league, we have the best basketball league, we have pretty much almost the only football league, hockey, right? I mean, there's no promotion relegation in any of those. And those are the best leagues in the world. Best leagues in the world, okay? Don't tell me that they need promotion relegation to be able to be motivated or for them to maintain their status.
Well,
it's not there.
If you sign a 10-year, $200 million contract, I'm sorry, I don't know if you're motivated each day to play to your very, very best. Now, the special ones are, and it doesn't even have to be that exorbitant. These guys make $5 million a year if they bat 225. So in baseball. So
Glenn, Let me ask you this. Okay.
Yeah.
So we go to practice when they allow us, which is once a week. Okay. We've been going to practice since we started doing this job over 10 years ago. Okay. When you look at players practicing, do you get the feeling that they're, that they're not motivated, that they don't care if they start or they don't, that they're not putting out a full effort, that these are almost unprofessional in the way that they go about their business? Have you ever gotten that feeling watching practice at New York City FC?
No, the only feeling I've gotten sometimes is when they're in a long stretch without winning. You can sense it at the training grounds. That's not necessary. That's not what you're talking about. A lack of effort. I mean, you can sense certain things. No, I wouldn't say that. But this is psychosomatic. This is something that is deeper, where you coaches talk about give an extra 1% today. That's some coaches, like every day, they just make it another 1%, make it another 1% of training today, and they'll do that through the course of the season. Remember 1%, they'll paste it up on the wall. It's an extra 1%. I'm just saying. I mean, there's that intrinsic motivation that if you go down, your worth as a player is less, and certainly your team isn't in a position to buy the sort of players maybe that they could in the past. So
now, I'm not making the argument that it's the same thing to play in MLS that it is to play in EPL, or it is to play in Spain, or it is to play in France or Italy.
Or the championship.
That's not the point.
Or the championship.
That's not the point I'm making. Obviously, you go to a better league, you have better teammates, you have probably better opponents, and that gives an extra demand for you, and you've got to obviously raise your game. We get that, but the argument also is, Glenn, what's better, right? Is it better to go to Brazil and sit on the bench, or is it better to go to the championship and sit on the bench? Or is it better to play in MLS and actually play every game? Okay. Now, we've had players return for the U.S. national team, Zach Steffen, for example, who couldn't get a sniff after a while playing in Europe. And now he's a starting goalie for Colorado. What's better for him? To be sitting on the bench in the championship, or to be playing every game? Because we have this thing now with Matt Turner, right? Matt Turner isn't getting a sniff except for cup games, but he's not playing EPL. Okay. Is that better for him, or is he better off in MLS playing every weekend? You're
raising another issue. I think that's that I don't see how it connects with what we were talking about, because we were talking about Christian Oliveira leaving, and Marcelo Bielsa saying, yeah, good thing, get out of MLS, or I don't want you for the Uruguay national team. You're not going to be prepared because they're lazy in MLS. He's going to play wherever he's going. Where is he going? Gremio? I forget what I said. Yeah, Gremio for $4.5 million. So he's going to play when he gets there.
Right. So, but for instance, Thiago Almada, who was with Atlanta, was picked by his coach, to play for the Argentine national team before the World Cup. He was picked. He was playing in MLS. That didn't seem to be a detriment. Played for the world champions, by the way. Okay, so that wasn't a detriment.
I'm not saying any of this is a detriment. I'm saying I think these are it's a reasonable argument to be made where you could but I don't necessarily agree with Bielsa that it depends on the situation. It's always situational. It's always circumstantial.
I fully agree. It depends on the player. It depends. Yeah. If you're not motivated to play here and to succeed and to be better, that's a you problem. Yeah. It's not a league problem.
All right, cool. Santi moments. I don't know if you came up with a couple, but I thought it would be. I ran through a couple that the ones that I could remember. The one that really sticks out for me is that early goal. It was like 3 minutes in at Gillette Stadium against the Supporter Shield champion New England Revolution. It was the conference semifinals, and New York City had never gotten past that round. And he scored a half volley goal. Man, that was a bullet past Matt Turner, I believe. And it was victory for. But now many other things happened. That game got tied, and things happened. But that goal to start the game was critical for New York City. Then I remember his brace against Toronto, and the reason it was an easy win. But his second goal, he dribbled around Sean Johnson and then just kind of tucked it in off the post. And it was sort of a humiliating goal for Sean Johnson. And I just thought I remembered it. That's one I remember.
The one that I remember, right? My favorite moment for him was the game against Tigres last year. Okay, yeah. Because of the importance of the game, the fact that New York City had already lost twice to them, back in the pre-COVID days, or one pre-COVID and one during COVID. And Tigres was a pretty big favorite, I would think, over New York City to beat them at Red Bull Arena, and they had support and everything. I remember the atmosphere was great. Tigres went up a goal. Maxi Morales winds up tying it like a minute later. And then off that, Santi had like two really, really good shots in the first half that Nahuel Guzman made some very good saves on. And then in the second half, off a free kick for Tigres, Maxi was able to interfere a little bit with that free kick, which, he didn't need to respect the 11, the 10 yards because of the fact that it wasn't, the referee didn't say it. They wanted to go quickly, and he interfered. Santi, intercepts the ball, gives it to Maxi, 1-2, and he scores the winner. So to me, that was such an important game.
Didn't he dribble the keeper in that goal too? Did you look back at the goal?
A little bit. I mean, he gets to the side, and yeah, I mean, it's a 1-2, and he's able to beat him to the side. Yeah. He beat Nahuel, who's a showman as well, Nahuel Guzman, and he was able to beat him, and New York City wound up winning that game. He also could have put that game away on a breakaway that they had. It was like a 3-on-2 breakaway, and he wound up hitting it a little bit high and a little bit wide.
His best technical goal might have been, now come to think of it, it was a 3-2 loss to Columbus. Columbus was up 3-1. There's about 5 minutes left, and the ball was served out of the back over 60 yards. And he brought it down with the top of his right boot and then settled and then finished. I was like, holy smokes, now it's 3-2. And now there's momentum. It didn't catch them, but it still ended up 3-2. All right, so Santi's gone. The number 10. So it's Maxi Morales and the 17-year-old I was referring to, Roberto, and I think it's something to at least ask Pascal Janssen, who we're going to see tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll go to training and then to LA afterwards. But one question needs to be the number 10 fill-in. You're going to push Maxi to as many minutes as he can. And is Maximo Carrizo, in his 2 weeks since he's been back, is he showing anything maybe where he could be a consideration? And I guess we won't know until the coach talks about it a little bit.
No, I think, it's an interesting question, because what we already saw very, very quickly is the fact that he had no problems putting Jonathan Shore into the game at halftime, right? And to put him in at the number 6, okay? And then, by the way, you've got this guy Messi, who's going to be a lot around your territory. And then, Nico Cavallo, both guys who did very, very well in preseason were rewarded with minutes. And I thought that they did very well. Especially, I thought what impressed me a lot about what Jonathan Shore did was that the minute he came in, he had an opportunity early outside the box. He cut the ball inside and he took a whack with his right foot that came close to the bar. And I was like, all right, you're not afraid. You're not afraid of the moment. You didn't hesitate. You saw that and you were like, I'm going for it. I love that. And the minute he did that, I said, he's not afraid. He's going to be fine in this game.
I thought even before that, the way we saw it too. And I agree with you 100% on that. He was just going to whack that. It sizzled over the bar, probably 8 to 10 yards, a little bit too high. But he looked composed and relaxed in there, and he was doing the thing. He got a poke tackle in, which created a counterattack at one point. No, he looked really comfortable. But throughout preseason, Pascal was saying it, and then you could see it in the pictures. If you watch the games from Coachella, is how he was working his way into it. So I don't think it was a surprise that he was inserted, but it's his first real game. So to see him respond like that was wonderful. And look, he was teamed up with Keaton Parks in the midfield. Now, Shane, put this picture up of Johnny Shore and Keaton Parks. This is from a while ago.
outside Yankee Stadium.
How great is that? Now, Johnny Shore's been in with the academy since he was 10 years old. I mean, he's been part of this fixture for a long time, signed as a homegrown. He's now 17. I'm going to guess he's around, 10 or 11 here as he gets the selfie with Keaton Parks. So now he's playing midfield with Parks against Messi and company. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That is amazing. I mean, and it just goes to show what a great academy New York City has. I mean, they bring a lot of homegrowns in, and then the point being, you want them to develop in New York City, and eventually you want to be able to sell them off, especially to Premier League teams or, one of the top 4 leagues in the world, the top 5 leagues in the world. So, they've done this with Scally, they did this with Sands. If you want to include Gio Reyna, although they didn't sell him, he left. But, I mean, there's a lot of guys who've developed and gone on. And, it's one of the ways that these teams make money. And it's not only in the United States, it's everywhere. You have a good academy and you bring up these players and then you sell them. And, that's part of the structure of being able to make some money. So, and then with Maximo Carrizo, who you would think, he's the next one who's going to eventually make his debut. So he wasn't with New York City as long as everybody else was in preseason because he was with the U17s that were able to qualify for the World Cup. And so I would suspect, even though he was on the bench, that he really wasn't going to get any minutes until he can get some real practice, with the team and see how they're going to do
Sure.
and how they're going to play.
Well, Pereira came in for Maxi Morales, and that made sense at the moment. But you look at that midfield, Pereira, Shore, and Parks, and this
then you're turning it to a 4-3-3, right? You're turning your 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3, and I think we're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah. So that's the game was Inter Miami 2, New York City 2. Didn't start well for New York City. 5 minutes in, they're down a goal as Thomas Avalos scores. And then 18 minutes later, he gets a straight red, which no one could argue. It was denying a goal scoring opportunity. Alonso Martinez doesn't get the assist, but on the free kick, Micha Ilinic gets the goal for Maxi Morales. Roberto Abramowitz on the Spanish side has the call on this one. Let's hear it.
Hannes Wolf, Maxi Morales. A ver quién le pega. Morales, jugada en corto, viene el centro y gol de New York City. Gol del empate. Creo que es Micha Ilinic por el lado derecho con su segundo gol de la temporada. Jugada de laboratorio que dejó parada la defensa de Miami. Estamos 1-1.
Quien sea que haya marcado el gol celebró a lo Cristiano Ronaldo. No sé cuán bien le puede haber caído eso a Messi, pero gran gol para New York City. 1-1, minuto 26 de juego.
All right, the old Ronaldo celebration in front of Messi. So that his post-game comments were classic. I mean, this is great. The kid is fun.
Without a doubt, he's such a nice kid too. Such a good player, such a nice kid, developing, and that was a great goal. Now, I made a mistake in the broadcast. I'll bring it up, even though sometimes you just don't want to call attention. I said it was the second goal of the season. I meant second goal of his career. So yes, that's what I meant. But I guess I got caught up in the moment. So well taken, and I mean it wasn't. Brilliant. What I liked about this, is the understanding that they had between Morales and Ilinic, because it wasn't something that they had practiced or anything based on what Morales and Ilinic said after the game. It was sort of like, I saw him there and I served it. And, it worked out.
No, give Hannes Wolf some credit too. I mean, it was clever. And Morales and Wolf, I think they had a little conference, and I'm sure Maxi kind of noticed, and because Wolf came up and faked like he was going to strike it, and that tenses people, kind of squeezes them into the goal defensively, and then Maxi just steps over and two-touch finish. Really good stuff. Second career goal, and I told him when I saw him after the game that was an American goal. I want you to know, because he just got his green card. So I said that's an American goal. So. He laughed. He said, "Yes, I got my green card." Yeah, I said, "I know, you told me." Anyway, he is delightful.
By the way, that doesn't make an American, but we'll go.
Oh,
go
I
with
know.
that sentiment.
I can bend the rules. I can bend the rules. So now it's 1-1, and New York City's up a player for the rest of the game, plus all the stoppage time. 8 minutes of the first half, 11 minutes at the end of 90 minutes.
Round up being 13, but yeah.
So, I mean, all this time up a man, but before disaster struck at the end, Alonso Martinez gave New York City the lead, courtesy of an assist from Jordi Alba. So here's my call on this one.
Jordi Alba gives it right into Martinez. Martinez dribbles into the box, finishes. Jordi Alba, uncharacteristic, absolutely. He just turned towards his own goal and played it right to Alonso Martinez. They had the big shape. The center backs couldn't recover in time. Martinez dribbled into the area and with the right foot drilled it past Ustari. And New York City takes the 2-1 lead in the 55th minute. And wow, Jordi Alba.
It can happen to even the best of them, can't it? He did pick his head up and he did have a little look, but he'd already played the ball really once he took a look. But give credit for the finish, for keeping his composure, Alonso Martinez. He's not really been in this game, but been a big part of both goals. Won the free kick, got the sending off for the first goal with Aviles, and then this one.
Nice goal, good finish, and the first
another assist for Alba. I don't think we're going to see that in the stats, but Alba was one of the better passes of the game.
I think it was my 99 assists for Barcelona, 14 last year for Miami, and his first of 25 is one that he regrets. But so now it's up 2-1.
His first one for New York City. Hopefully there are more.
Well, they play one more time this year at least. So now you're up 2-1. But there's a good portion of the second half, even up a man, where New York City, as I think Maddie, and that was Maddie Lawrence, by the way, Ariel Hudas on the call with Roberto, and where it was like if you walked up, the old line, if you walked up to the game now, you would have no idea that New York City had the man advantage. It was Miami with a lot of the play, and unfortunately, the late goal was surrendered. And it's 2-2, and it's a point, and it's a point that you certainly would have taken before the game commenced. You would have said, "All right," but the way it played out, I guess that's a disappointing point. I don't know what you think, Roberto.
So I've been going back and forth on this result, because you can take out positives and you can get negatives. There's a lot of people that we spoke to, considering that New York City has 4 open spots. They had just sold Santi, the amount of players that are there, who's there, so many, the bench with 5 kids who have never played before in an MLS game. You only had, I think, 3 veterans on the bench and all that. And you look at the game before the game's played, right? None of your DPs are playing. You don't have that either. And you're going against Messi, Alba, Busquets, Suarez, and the rest of Inter Miami, right? And so there's a lot of people that were like, well, they may get smoked. Don't be surprised if it's 5-0.
Sure.
And,
of course you think that way.
Right. Yeah. So if you look at it from that perspective, right?
I'm not looking at it from that perspective. I'm looking from the perspective that you're playing a man up. You're up 2-1, but it is, you put Nico Cavallo at left back because Kevin O'Toole is not fit enough to play 90 minutes. And I'm going to ask Pascal about this tomorrow, because if you heard my pregame show with him, I asked him specifically about game fitness, and he said, my team is game fit. Well, they were not game fit because they couldn't, who else? Maxi Morales couldn't come close to going 90. Hannes Wolf was exhausted. He was completely knackered.
He did a lot. He did a lot of work. Ojeda was spent too.
He did. So now you're putting a rookie left back whose last competitive game other than preseason was at UCLA, and he's trying to figure out Messi and this through ball to Segovia that ends up in the back of the net. It's a great goal too, but it was just it was difficult, and that's part of the depth of the roster at this moment too. And what you alluded to is the lack of experience on the bench. But can you still figure out a way to be compact enough to not allow that? But Messi is a magician, and we're going to get to his post game antics in a moment. But he was very good that match.
There's in my conversation on the bus or on the plane with Maddie, he said something really interesting that I plan to ask Pascal about, if you don't beat me to it, is that why, if you have a man advantage, right? You're playing 11 against 10, all right? Why don't you have somebody man marking Messi?
Well, don't you think other sides have come up with that thought? Because he drifts, he doesn't run at times. He just kind of so you're
Doesn't
saying
it make it easier to
you're
man
saying
mark him
so you're saying take a guy to never leave Messi, period. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? Just
absolutely, especially the last 5-10 minutes of the game. So the last, all the stoppage time.
Right.
You've got the advantage. You know that there's one guy out there who can absolutely kill you.
No, it's a good question.
Do your best to make sure that he doesn't.
So when New York City shut down Lionel Messi, not completely, because he has assists on the last 3 goals scored by Miami against New York City, the 1-1 draw at Yankee Stadium, he had an assist on that. But the rest of that game, New York City had the clamps on him. And they had the clamps on him in a team defensive way, not a man marking way. We know Sands did a good job. Central defenders did a good job. Wingers tucking in did a good job. He had a lot of players around him at all times.
Yeah.
So that's not always the answer, because again, he's got guile. He's got, it's, you turn your head for a minute, which is what happened on the corner kick goal. Justin Hack turned his head just for a moment. And it was a 1-2, boom, he's in. Next thing you know, it's back of the net for Avalos. So, that's the risk you run too, I guess.
And then also, I mean, you've got to think about Strahinja Tanasiewicz, right? Who started the game in the center of defense. And he got himself a yellow card, and then he probably deserved a second yellow card.
Not probably.
And towards the end of the first half, and I heard your part of the broadcast as you put that on social media, and Ariel and I basically said the same thing. That he's very, very lucky not to get a second yellow in that situation, and that's why he had to be removed from the game. And so now you take him out, because now you have to take him out because of the fact that anything that he does, he breathes wrong on somebody, and he's probably going to get a second yellow and get ejected. So you want to protect him, and you're protecting the team not to go 10 versus 10. So then you've got to drop Justin. Then you got to bring in this case, you bring in Jonathan Shore. I mean, all these things, and you lose a veteran presence on your back line. And, without Thiago Martins, who's injured, without Tavon Gray, who's injured, there was a lot of things. So you can look at this point. There's a positive to take out of it. But, yes, there's an absolute negative, because you don't want to give up a goal when you're up 2-1 and you're up 11 versus 10.
Hey, it might end up being like just a huge point at the end of the day as the season progresses. We'll see. And now you're going into this cauldron, BMO Stadium out at LAFC. We'll get to that in a bit. So no one will question the genius of Lionel Messi. We both have just loved watching him over the years. You tune in to watch games because he's, MLS is certainly using that in their Apple TV subscriptions and promoting, and, Lionel Messi is everywhere, and that's understood, but he's also just a joy to watch. But what happened post game was not too joyful. So, Shane, we have that. So here we'll talk over this as it happens. So the final whistle has been blown, and Messi goes for the referee, Rosendo Mendoza, who
I think it wasn't Rosendo, according to everybody, Glenn. And now this is on, the information I got that it was supposed to be Rosendo Mendoza. At the end of the day, everybody puts Alexis da Silva as a referee. He was supposed to be the fourth official and was there. I don't, every everything I've seen post game has been that it was
Okay.
Alexis da Silva. So I just want to make that.
Oh, forgive
it's
me.
you know
Forgive
the
me, 'cause
information we got it was that it was Rosendo, but I want to make that just in case it was Alexis.
Okay, well, I'll get clarification. I don't think we can get it by the end of the show, but okay, we'll just say the referee for now.
Yes.
Whoever it was in the middle had a difficult game, but it is early in the season, and I think what Messi's doing here. Let's roll it, Shane, because I think what he's doing here, because of where he's pointing. So he's going to the referee, and he keeps pointing to his right, and that's where Tanasiewicz should have gotten the second yellow. There's not a chance that Tanasiewicz should still have been on the field. And by the way, one of his teammates, said the same thing post game, not publicly. I'm just saying, and not in a bad way. It's just like we were really fortunate, as you said. So now Messi finally gets booked because of who knows what he said. And now he's going back at the referee after getting booked. So no second yellow, no red card for Messi there. Now the next part of this is pretty interesting because it involves Mehdi Belushi. So Belushi is having there's Belushi, Mehdi, who's top assistant for New York City. He and Messi are having a little chat. Now some Inter Miami assistant. I don't know which assistant that is. That's not Javier Morales, is it?
I don't think so.
And
I don't know who that is. I'd have to look.
Assistants there. And there's the hand of the neck. And then the squeeze right there. And look at Mehdi, like, whoa. But he didn't do anything, Mehdi, other than turn towards him. So all that happened post-game. It got clipped like that. Apple TV did not have it. This is somebody in the stands who filmed this whole thing. And Messi and Suarez, who you don't see, Suarez was also hardly to be controlled at the final whistle, and he got booked as well. So MLS has fined the gazillionaire Messi and the little less, but still gazillionaire Suarez. They fined them both, which is within,
Yes.
I will say this, by the letter of the law. Let's see if I can read it. Individuals witnessed to have contacted the face, head, and or neck of an opponent, which incites or escalates an individual incident as determined by the disciplinary committee, and or an incident that results in mass confrontation, will receive a minimum of a fine. So it doesn't say they have to be suspended. It says the minimum would be a fine. So I know
And the one thing that I want to clear up, though, just for
sure.
just to make sure. So Luis Suarez never got a yellow card during the game. What he did do was, there's a new rule in MLS that only the captain can speak to the referee. The referee can speak to anybody, but there was points where Suarez, was on top of the referee going against the rule, and I think that's why he wound up getting fined.
So he
violated that part of the rule.
Let me clarify. You said he didn't get booked during the game?
No, he's not. He's not booked after the game either. Only Lionel Messi is, according to the stats.
Well, then I'm not following you. So when was he booked? If he's not booked during the game or after the game, when was he booked?
He wasn't booked.
Yes,
That's what I'm saying, is that he wasn't booked. He was fined, but he wasn't booked.
At
least, okay, he was fined, but he wasn't booked.
Well, that was my point too. When Ian Joy put a post out there, is like, listen, the referees have this mechanism now where if anybody comes up to them in an obnoxious way outside of the captain, that captain can speak. Others can approach, but it can't be in a confrontational or in an enveloping way. They're supposed to be booked. Busquets and Suarez both should have been booked, and they've been doing it all their life. And the only way you're going to get them to stop in MLS is to book them. It's going to take some bravery for the referee and maybe even the disciplinary committee. What do you think about the hand to Belushi's neck? And, Mehdi's not going to say much about it if we ask him, so I don't even know if I want to. But, putting the hand on the neck and then squeezing it to the point where Mehdi's like jumps back.
Yeah,
and
he's
looks
taking
over.
it back, yeah.
So
that's absolutely wrong. I mean, I could see.
No, I don't mean wrong. I mean,
should he be
disciplined? I'm asking you, should he be suspended? That's what I'm asking.
So, that's what I'm getting to, is the fact that I wouldn't have been surprised if they said, there's a 1 game or a 2 game suspension for doing that. I wouldn't have been surprised at all. I think that is definitely warranted, but it's also messy. So I think that maybe he got a little bit of favorable treatment there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to LAFC. That's the next game. they've got a pretty good record in season openers. They open at home to Minnesota. So in season openers, they are 8-0 after beating Minnesota 1-0. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
To open, and they always say, you want to get off to a great start, and how important a good start is in MLS, because then it allows you to have those, eventual slumps, and you've gotten all those good points early on in the year. So they got off to another good start. Jeremy Abobasi scores the goal, and Olivier Giroud does not. So the Olivier Giroud thing is pretty interesting at this point, Roberto. And I'm going to play something from Steve Cherundolo, because he has still not scored in an MLS game. Now, he came in August last year, and it's 708 minutes without a goal in Major League Soccer regular season matches and postseason. Now, he has a goal in Leagues Cup, and he has a goal in U.S. Open Cup. So I was fortunate enough to just sit with Cherundolo. And certainly one of my questions is, what are you going to do with Giroud? How are you going to fix this? And, for this great French international, unbelievable all-time goal scorer, one of the great strikers in our time for sure. So this is what Cherundolo said. You have maybe a primary objective. I don't know if I'm overstating it. Olivier Giroud, who came in the summer, was unable to score in MLS regular season play or the postseason. And I would think one of your main objectives would be to sort out how he can best contribute to your current side.
Yeah, it's not just one player. So we're concerned with winning games and scoring goals as an organization. We're happy for everyone to share the load. That is just fine. But if Olivier can get a few goals as well as our 9, we have nothing against that. And traditionally, players who come to the MLS after a long European season and long careers, it takes them a good 6 months to adapt.
Right.
And that is perfectly normal. And what I've seen so far in preseason has been a much livelier, joyful, and prolific Olivier Giroud.
Do you feel like, though, that you've, when you looked into this season and having a player like that you had to make any adjustments tactically to the overall?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. I mean, the guy is not that far removed from 15 goals, 8 assists for Milan, so we know he still has it.
He certainly does. And again, what I've seen so far in preseason this year, I think it's fair to expect that. And he expects that from himself. And so we're doing a great job as a group so far, to put him in positions to score, because that's what he does best. And I'm sure you'll see plenty of goals from him this season.
I saw Ricardo Pepi just scored the near post recently in a match for PSV. And the first thing I thought of was that's a Giroud goal.
There's no secret why goals are scored in the golden zone, which is the 6-yard box, and it's usually the near post area between the 6 and the penalty spot. And it's the most vulnerable areas for defenses. It's almost impossible for a keeper to save, to react, and all good goal scorers make that first run. And it's those are easy goals. Those are the goals that keep your stats up every year as a number 9 or a goal scorer. And that's a run we certainly expect from our attackers too.
All right. No tactical adjustments with Giroud on the field. I happen to know that is not an accurate statement. Let's just put it that way. They have made adjustments leading into him becoming their full-time number 9, if that occurs. Now, he started both CONCACAF Champions League matches where LAFC advanced over Colorado on goal differential, but Abobasi started the Minnesota game, the regular game. So we don't really know who's going to go on Saturday, at this point. And now I saw an article. Somebody wrote an article, Roberto, saying is he better served maybe to be coming off the bench for LAFC? I don't know about that.
He might. I mean, he might be, especially he's not exactly a young kid anymore at 38 years old. So he's in MLS so far. He's 0 for 15.
Yeah. Well, and Abobasi, is he going to lead your front line though as the primary guy? That's a question too. So, it's and
I mean, Abobasi can score. I mean, Abobasi, wherever he's been, he's proven that he can score goals. I mean, and Boanga really can score goals. So, I mean, just because Giroud isn't doing it, it doesn't mean that everybody else isn't doing it. So,
here's the guy.
You can see these guys.
Here's the guy I want you to prepare for on your broadcast, Roberto. Are you ready?
Let's go.
He's Venezuelan. His name is David Martinez. He's 19 years old, and Kevin O'Toole is going to have his hands full. The key matchup to me, the one to really watch. He's a right winger with a left peg. We've seen that before. Drive to the inside, but he also uses the right and has really he's recorded a couple of assists in all competitions, including the game winner to Abobasi, using the right foot, getting around the edge, so he'll slide it across. And he's a really interesting player. He's not completely disciplined, so he comes up with things that, it's almost hard to prepare for because he's very inventive. Giroud, you can tell.
You want to see.
Well, Giroud a couple of times is like, hey, get it to me earlier. I'll get it back to you, things like that. But it's that to me is a real interesting matchup on the left side of the New York City defense, where we know we're not sure who's going to start on the left side for New York City. It was Algo Ojeda in the opener, and maybe something else comes up. We'll see.
But we'll see. But also, we don't know who's going to start on defense because we don't. We saw that Thiago Martins was practicing on Thursday. We didn't see practice on Friday, but they had already ruled him out of the game on Saturday. But one would have to suspect that he will be in the 20 for New York City, either as a starter or as a reserve. We don't know what's going on with Tavon Gray either. We'll find all these things out tomorrow, and we will post them, I'm sure, on our social media channels.
Yeah, before
we fly out to LA.
Well, and I'll try to play some clips from the coach and anybody else that we talk to tomorrow before we hop on a plane. So go on social media. Roberto and I are both on X, and we're both on Blue Sky. I put stuff on LinkedIn. I'm starting to put stuff back on Instagram, Roberto. I just never been a good Instagram person. I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
That's okay. You'll get there. I'm
trying. Now, one area where I think New York City is fortunate, LAFC signed a guy on February 20th. I'm not even sure if he's in camp yet. I'm trying to find out. But his name is Cengiz Under. And he's played at Roma, Leicester City, and Marseille. 66 goals, 46 assists, 343 appearances. He's a Turkish guy. 16 goals, 10 assists, and 51 caps for Turkey. So he, too, is going to help them in their attacking, as a front four kind of player. But I'm pretty sure we're not going to see him. The other question mark, Roberto, and the guy who is very much responsible for LAFC getting past Colorado, because he scored a late game at Colorado in those freezing conditions off his head, as he's done so often in his career, Aaron Long. But last night, he left at halftime. Kevin Baxter of the LA Times, I just texted him. I say, you have any idea what's going on? He has a tight muscle. That's all Cherundolo would say. And his status for Saturday is
a toss-up,
up in the air. But he's captain, and he's very, very critical to their backline. So those are two things that
And Maxime Chanot is on the team, but he was on the injured list for the last game. So we don't know if he's going to be available for this game. I guess when we see all the notes from the press conference, when LAFC has it, we'll check everything out.
I don't know if this is true. FOTMOB has him coming back in March. We know FOTMOB sometimes on their injury reports are not completely up to speed. I texted Maxime while I was out there at their team hotel. Didn't respond, didn't see him. I would have stuck a mic in front of him too, let him say hello to New York, but maybe some other time. Just a couple other MLS notes, and then a quick kicking it around. Bruce Arena in San Jose, 4-0 over RSL. I thought, and Chicho Arango, Joseph Martinez, twin strikers up front, acquired by San Jose. Huge signings. These guys are going to boost our attack. They didn't score either of the 4 goals. They didn't score any of them. So that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good.
Bruce working his magic in San Jose. That's for sure. I don't know what's going on with the Real Salt Lake. I mean, they had a fire sale.
Well, they lost 60% of their goals. That's what happened. They lost 60% of their goals, and they got.
I don't know how they're going to replace them, but you hope that they do for that fan base, because they pretty much sell out their stadium probably about 95% of the time. So let's see what happens.
Here's a trivia question for you, Roberto. Name the 2 coaches who have won a game with at least 5 different MLS clubs.
Okay, Bruce is one.
Okay, if you didn't get that one, okay, Bruce is one. When I say it, you'll get it. When I say it, you'll go like, okay. Bob Bradley.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but I mean, It was like he's been all over the place. I was trying to count some of his teams, and I got lost in there.
New York City plays New England in week 4. They open up 0-0 draw at Nashville. Caleb Porter used just 1 substitute at this time of the year. I found that kind of wild. And the other game I wanted to, or Orlando, that's the home opener coming up after this LAFC. Orlando's coming in. Orlando's first loss ever in a season opener, and they got raked over the coals by Philadelphia 4-2.
At home.
Crazy game at Orlando. So
yeah, because Philadelphia is a team that everybody feels is not going to make the playoffs after all the players that they let go.
Well, things are going well for Bradley Carnell for now. Now, there's a couple of interesting notes here, and I know I think you heard Brad Sims say this at the groundbreaking, but it's now reality once the schedule came out. New York City's home opener is March 8th versus Orlando. On March 8th, 2015, New York City and Orlando, both expansion sides, played their first games ever against each other, a 1-1 draw. So, as Bruce would say, well, I'm going to quote Bruce, those people in the MLS offices aren't as dumb as you think. That was Arena. That wasn't me in scheduling this very nicely for New York City. So let's give them multitudes of adulation on this. Then March 15th versus New England. Okay. On March 15th, 2015, it was the historic home opener at Yankee Stadium. New York City beat New England 2-0, and this game is also going to be at Yankee Stadium. So back-to-back home games have this. So they're going to play that up, I'm pretty sure, within the club, and I think it's really nice. Who scored the 2 goals against New England? Another trivia question for you, Roberto.
Well, David Villa got the first one.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. I'm trying to remember who got the second.
This is a good one.
Yeah, oh, God. I don't think it was Harrison. I don't think Harrison was.
No, he wasn't there yet. Patrick Mullins.
Oh, Patrick
How about
Mullins.
That? Patrick Mullins scored that. It was a big goal. It just kind of sealed it, and
over 40,000 people at Yankee Stadium for that game, which was the second largest attendance ever for a New York City FC game in New York, because they sold out the building for the Red Bulls later on that year in a game that New York City wound up losing 3-1. And then last year when they played Inter Miami, so they got close to, 44 and change in that game.
Yeah.
So that is now the second most people in attendance, and they'll never break the record anymore, because at least not in Yankee Stadium or Citi Field for that matter, because they've downsized Yankee Stadium. They've built some extra areas and suites and stuff, so they have less seating now than they did back in 2015.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if on March 15th, 2025, that over 40,000 came in and watched that game? I mean, that would be cool, and I haven't seen much promotion.
Brad Sims might have to be put under, cardiac watch if that happens.
Well, let's get it done. All right, Roberto, let's go kick it around. All right. So today I had some time today. So I watched 3 episodes of this new MLS documentary series called Onside ... Major League Soccer. And so the first one I watched was the New York Derby one. And I found the 2 documentaries. Remember the documentary Win that came out?
Yeah, of course.
2016. So what was very odd about that, and it covered the entire first season, is that it didn't come out until pretty well into the second season. And Jason Kreis was one of the protagonists. He was in it a lot, which makes sense because he was the coach at the time. But now, by the time it gets released, he's long gone after getting sacked. Patrick Vieira is in charge. So it was a little odd from that standpoint, although it was nice to see some of the things that happened behind the scenes. Ditto on the New York Derby one, because Nick Cushing, the people who are most prominent in this Derby one are John Tolkien for the Red Bulls, Malachi Jones, and this was wonderful because they told his story, which a lot of people probably don't know, Malachi Jones, and Nick Cushing. Those are the three people that showed up and spoke most in this documentary. And Nick is gone. So it's just a little odd. It's still a nice look back. And for Red Bull supporters, they're going to be the happiest with this because they kind of cover all three games. The first game pretty thoroughly, and then the third, which was the playoff loss for New York City, which ended, the time of Nick Cushing with the New York City Football Club. And
let me ask you a question. What stood out to you in that documentary, in the first one, in Win?
What stood out to me in the first one? I have to go back now. Well, what stood out to me was Jason Kreis in locker room situations and what he said to David Villa a couple of times, not at Villa, but just kind of expressing himself. And I think when I talked to Jason later about that, he said that was not a particularly proud moment because he wasn't sure exactly what was going to be seen. So he was sitting with his children watching that, and the F-bombs and how he kind of was strident in a lot of cursing to try to motivate, apparently, shock the family a little bit. But and maybe I'm sure they knew a little bit about how that was going to go. And then the other thing was, I do remember Claudio Reyna in tears at that first home game. His father was there, and he, because of everything they had gone through to get that, that was kind of a moment that you look back on and go, wow, after all that work, you get this win in the home opener. How about yourself?
To me, it was David Villa understanding very, very quickly that he needed to learn English, and that he made that a point. And at some point during the documentary, he says, "I've got to learn English. And then, he goes out, and within a year and change, he's doing press conferences in English when he didn't know a word coming in. I mean, that was shocking how quickly he picked that up and how well he did. I mean, credit to him. That was amazing. That sort of stood out for me. The realization first, right? Okay, if I want to be the leader of this team, I need to do this. And then going out and doing it in a way that is really, really difficult if you're not a kid. If you're a kid, you have a very high predisposition of being able to learn a language before you're 10 years old. You still have it, a little bit like from 10 to 20, but, you never really pick up the accent and all that. So, but anything below 10, and you can speak like a native either way, which is what happened with me. So, but after that, it becomes harder, which is funny because now I hear my sister and Leslie is, she has a Mexican accent when she speaks, but there's something there that isn't maybe as Mexican as mine. And because she was 5 years older, so it was different for her. Yeah. And my father just never did. My father, when he picked up Spanish, and he couldn't conjugate to save his life. So it would be something like, your querer ir al supermercado a comprar carne.
Okay. Well, that's so we had two different things stand out. So I'm not going to say too much more about this series. With the Malachi Jones piece is wonderful, and he's pretty much it charts the whole thing with him, including the injury. One thing,
are they downloadable, by the way? Because it may be something that I'm interested in downloading to watch on the plane tomorrow, as we have no Wi-Fi.
I don't know. You'll have to investigate that this evening. All right. So, what else do we have here? So, Club World Cup ticket prices have gone from $5.26 as the cheapest ticket for the final to $1.40. Guess what? They're having problems selling tickets, so now they're making the prices cheaper.
Wow, good.
Yeah,
good.
So that's pretty good. I have to mention this. So, and this is sensitive, but Jose Mourinho is perhaps in some deep trouble. But he also has the backing of Didier Drogba and Michael Essien, who both played for him in Chelsea and understand something about Jose. So anyway, I'm just going to read from an article. After a match, he's at Fenerbahce, and they were playing Galatasaray, arch rivals. And Turkey, this goes back to what you said at one point, in terms of, going into these cauldrons and fearing for your life. I mean, these Turkish football matches are crazy.
That is a home field advantage. That's a home field advantage.
After the match, Mourinho heavily criticized the standard of Turkish referees and told reporters that Galatasaray's bench had been, quote, jumping like monkeys. So now Galatasaray they're taking him to court. They're trying to take him to court over this. Now, here's what Didier Drogba said, who played a bit for Galatasaray. Here's his quote. "Trust me when I tell you I have known Jose for 25 years, and he is not a racist, and history is there to prove it." Drogba's black, by the way, for those who don't know. "Let's focus on our games, support our brilliant Lions, and let's win the league." And then he added, "How can my dad be a racist? Come on, guys." So, and Mourinho said afterwards, he goes, I was just describing the scene. And I think we all understand if there are black players on the other side of the ledger and the word monkeys is used, it's going to be a tough time to break loose of that, So
I didn't see the quote. I didn't see. I'm hearing this for the first time. You're telling me this, and
it's okay.
I'm hoping and hoping that it wasn't meant in a disparaging way as far as race is concerned, and it was just trying to make a euphemism or a comment just in general, and it was unfortunate that it came out that way.
We're a sensitive society. I don't know Jose Mourinho, but when two black athletes who spend a lot of time with him come out and go, "Come on, guys, come on," I trust that more than I would trust that he was being racist, making that comment. So what I did, Roberto, I go to Chat GPT and I wrote the question: is Jose Mourinho a racist? You want to hear the answer?
Let's go.
"There is no credible evidence to suggest that Jose Mourinho is a racist. Throughout his career, he has worked with players from diverse backgrounds and has been praised by many of them for his management style and leadership. However, like many high-profile figures in football, he has been involved in controversies, some of which have led to accusations of inappropriate behavior." So that was ChatGPT. And there. Now, I asked.
That's pretty accurate. I don't
asked
disagree with anything.
I asked ChatGPT another thing too. Here it is. "Why is Roberto Abramowitz so mean to Glenn Crooks?" You want to hear the answer? There's an answer.
Oh boy, let's go. Let me hear this. Let me see what ChatGPT thinks of me.
"I haven't seen any public incidents of Roberto Abramowitz being mean to Glenn Crooks. They are both well-known figures in soccer broadcasting, and while they may have differing opinions or on-air banter, there doesn't seem to be any widely reported conflict between them."
So basically, ChatGPT is telling you to suck it up, Glenn, and stop being, so hypersensitive.
I love it. There doesn't seem to be any reported, widely reported conflict between us. So, I've only, honestly, like a week ago, I just out of curiosity, I typed in the name of somebody I was going to interview. And I got to tell you, it was pretty interesting. I didn't use most of what was there, but there were a couple of things going like, wow, I hadn't thought of that. And I used those questions. So
but I want to say something about, using technology and AI to write stories. So I went to the New York Post to see if they had written a story on the New York-Miami game, and they did. It was written by the AP, but it also seemed that it wasn't actually written by a human. And did you know that according to the New York Post, obviously nobody edits this, and if they did edit it, then whoever did either doesn't know soccer, doesn't follow MLS, or doesn't have any idea who New York City is, because they had Santi Rodriguez giving the assist to Micha Ilinic for the goal. Number 10, Santi Rodriguez.
Of course, he was number 10 for a season, and then
and
preseason.
Yeah, and so
technology
can be helpful, but you still need the human element to correct these mistakes because it's not infallible. And although I'm happy that, on one end, at least they had the story on the website, although you couldn't find it on the main sports page. There's nowhere to find it on the main sports page. You actually have to go, especially on the app, not on the app, on your iPhone if you use Safari, right? You have to go sports, and then all the way at the end, past sports entertainment, MMA, UFC, WWE, and everything else. You find soccer all the way at the end. And then I found the story there. But it was there. So if you look for it, at least it was there. But it's not really shareable or anything else. Or I don't know how it even helps if you can't get the information correct. So they gotta fix that. I get that they can't put a reporter on for whatever reason, although they're covering Gotham, and I'm happy to see that they cover Gotham. I'm happy to see that they cover Liberty, but they don't cover the Red Bulls and they don't cover New York City FC.
All right, you're right there. But the number 10 and the Santi Rodriguez part, the thing I would say is this. What is the latest roster that they had? I don't know. Did a roster come out with...
It's AP.
Other than
it's the AP.
No, I'm
the
saying
AP is supposed to have everything. Yes, it's AP. It is supposedly the most trusted news source in the world, along with Reuters. Okay, this is the AP. This is the Associated Press, and the Post just grabbed the article, like they subscribe to several news organizations, as any newspaper does, and because you can't cover everything, and you use that.
Okay.
You got to have an editor also on their end that has to know what they're looking at and fix that.
I'm not saying it's necessarily forgivable. In fact, because of that error, I think we should ban them from going into the White House press room in order to cover the White House. I think the ban should be placed on them for that error, saying that Maxi Morales was Santi Rodriguez. So there, you're out. Oh my gosh. Well, the one thing I'll tell you, the happiest people in the world, or at least in the United States of America, are therapists, because they're all jam-packed, schedules filled. And I'm not talking about physical therapy. I'm talking about psychiatrists.
Yeah, it's not going to last long because health insurance isn't going to cover it.
Okay.
And so, at $300 a pop, for most people are going to go broke very quickly, and they're going to say, nah, we're not going to do this. Because, the insurance companies can only insure, and I have firsthand knowledge of this. So if somebody visits somebody who's out of network that costs $300, they give you in network, they give you they have a limit of $120 for somebody who might be in network, because you went out of network, they'll only cover 40% of that once you get to your minimum of $6,000. It's crazy. Okay. It's like, we're not really covering this. It's insane. It's horrific. And I have firsthand knowledge of this.
All right, man. Well, we have struck a chord, and normally we like to end on a positive note. I guess I don't have anything else down here to be real positive, except Manchester United. Their layoffs.
Yeah, that's very positive. Yeah, thank you.
No, but I almost I did this on air the other day with SiriusXM, and I lost it because it sounded like prison food, because no one except for the players and coaching staff now are given free food that work in the building. But they have
talking about Manchester City or Manchester United?
Manchester United. And they have
Manchester United, yeah. That's terrible. Yes.
They have access to soup and bread and fruit. to help them subsist through the day. So anyway,
I thought you were going to talk about Manchester City beating Spurs today 1-0. I thought
no, I'm not talking about any of that. All right, we got to get out of here
with that.
Nobody wants to listen anymore.
We have to tell people where they can hear us because we're going to be on the air. We fly out to LA tomorrow.
It's going to be late.
Quite excited about that. The weather isn't that great, by the way. High temperatures in the 60s. So, bring long sleeve shirts.
Yep. I'll be riding on my bike on the promenade. But anyway.
I may join you. I may do that with you.
10:15 p.m. Eastern so you're gonna have to stay up late. I don't think anybody will be watching overseas this one, unless they go to bed real early and get up real early. But that's our pregame show, and Maddie and I will be on at 9:45 with our NYCFC pregame live. So I expect you all to tune into that. And that's it. So let's see what happens. 1 point in Miami. Can they garner at least another one in LAFC? We'll find out more tomorrow when we talk to the coach, get to see training. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. And thanks for joining us. And enjoy the rest of your week, everybody, on NYCFC Views.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.